I heard a quote the other day that AI is the new organic. Everyone wants to have a piece of it and everyone wants to use it. My approach has been to treat it like another software package. AI is just a tool. Yeah, it's got some pretty awesome capabilities, but we really want to look at the governance and the guardrails we can put up.
What happens when AI hype meets real-world healthcare compliance? Today's guest isn't just thinking about innovation, he's managing the risks, rethinking governance, and bringing strategy to the chaos of emerging tech in senior living.
Welcome to From Leads to Leases, a CCR growth podcast that helps senior living providers transform their complex challenges into opportunities. Listen in for stories from industry leaders, innovative strategies, and insights. And with our expertise, learn how to increase occupancy faster, guaranteed.
Welcome back to another episode of From Leads to Leases, the podcast that dives deep into the senior living and senior care industries, bringing you insights, strategies, and stories from the experts at the forefront of innovation, leadership, and care. I'm your host, Jerry Vinci, CEO of CCR Growth. And for those of you who don't know about us, CCR Growth is a full-service marketing and growth agency exclusive to the senior living industry. Through this podcast, I'm here to guide you through the evolving landscape of senior care, exploring the innovations, strategies, and leadership insights that are shaping the future of the industry. So whether you're a provider, a caregiver, or industry leader, this show is here to help you make informed decisions and create meaningful impact. All right. Today's guest is Benjamin Exstrom, Senior Vice President of IT at Sinceri Senior Living, with more than 2 decades of leadership experience across healthcare, finance, and education, and agriculture. Benjamin has become a go-to expert in digital transformation, cybersecurity, and IT governance. At Sinceri, he oversees tech operations across nearly 80 communities and is helping lead the organization through a critical evolution, integrating AI with caution, with care, and strategic foresight. So, Benjamin, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It sounds
Absolutely.
pretty impressive when you read it off.
Oh man, this is going to be such a great conversation. Everywhere I go, all I hear about is AI. So I want to get to the underbelly of AI and see what we can see from an IT perspective on things here. One of the big aspects of AI is AI governance. And so with your organization, why is AI governance a bigger priority than AI capability right now?
I heard a quote the other day that AI is the new organic, right? It's everywhere, and now you can't even buy Doritos without it saying organic someplace on the packaging, right? And I think that's pretty indicative to where AI is at the moment. It's everywhere. Everyone wants to have a piece of it, and everyone wants to use it. But at Sinceri, at least my approach has been to treat it like another software package, right? Just say, hey, AI is just a tool. It's an IT tool. Yeah, it's got some pretty awesome capabilities, and we've seen some really spectacular stuff coming out of the generative arena. But it's a pretty broad definition too. So when we're looking at how do we manage the use and implementation of this, we really want to look at the governance and the guardrails we can put up, either technologically, policy-wise, or education and administratively, to say, hey, this is how you can use AI. We don't want you to not use it, but we want you to be very mindful when you use it. And I think the biggest aspect of that is education. You got to keep open communications with the front line who are like asking questions. Can I do this? Can I do that? And I think a large part of that is we want to get to, yes, you can, but let's take these precautions so we're not regretting that decision later.
One of the big misconceptions, I think, for a lot of people that aren't necessarily tech savvy is I think they're confusing automation with AI, and I don't think they really recognize what the difference is. How would you define the difference between automation and AI?
Well, automation is a form of AI. AI is a big umbrella these days, right? It starts out at the basic task automation. Chatbots are considered AI, and they're just a literal script that is being followed by the computer. No thought, no generation there at all. So automation does fall into the umbrella, but it is not a thinking system, right? So when we think generative AI, we want to assign that it can make a decision based off of input it's been given. And the decision might change just depending on how you present that input. But in automation, it's going to do task A, B, and C, and then it's going to go back and do task A, B, and C. It's not going to change or deviate from what it was originally designed to do. And that's the challenge with these AIs is when you get to that generative arena, something may, comma may be in the wrong spot. You'll get a completely different response from a prompt. You got yesterday or an update happened on the background, and that prompt means something very different because the AI learned and was trained a little bit more. So it's a very automation is awesome. We use it as much as possible. It makes the boring stuff a lot easier to tolerate when you're having to deal with it. But at the same time, it's not going to make that choice of do I want chocolate ice cream or vanilla ice cream today? It's going to do whatever you told it.
And in a healthcare setting like ours, what are the dangers of unrestricted access to generative AI tools?
I would think data leakage, privacy and security of patient data is always top of mind when we're dealing with vulnerable populations who we're serving. We really want to make sure that anytime we want to do analytics on data and use whether it's machine learning, Watson was doing that 10 years ago when it would take medical records and give you a working care plan. Whether we're doing that or if we're using ChatGPT to write our care notes for us, we want to make sure we're careful about what we feed it, right? I've used ChatGPT to update a resume, and I bet if you go in there and said, hey, tell me a story about an IT director at Sinceri Senior Living, you get a lot of the information off my resume because it's not secret, right? We don't want to put your social security number in ChatGPT. That's not a way we use any software logically, right? We definitely want to make sure we're thinking about what information am I giving it? Is this private? Is this classified? Is this trade secrets? At my level, is this an SEC violation, right? What does that look like? And just make sure we're understanding that data is everywhere, and we don't want to add to the chaos and leak our personal information if we don't have to.
And with such a large workforce with Sinceri, I mean, how do you educate while balancing innovation with compliance?
I would say that's probably the hardest challenge because we're seeing frontline workers who don't know how to use Microsoft Teams, and they're asking us, teach me how to use Teams. And as an IT guy, it's like, well, just open it up and start using it. Well, you can't do that with generative AI, right? You've got to have, well, this is how you prompt it. This is how you do a good prompt. This is how you do a bad prompt. And so we've really been leaning into a lot of the training that these AI providers are giving us on prompt development and prompt engineering and asking the tough questions is like, is this going to fall in line with our HIPAA compliance? Is this going to be part of our financial compliance? How do we ensure that this chat bot or this chat generation is not going to compromise us in some way that we don't want to be? And then opening that door slow to the generative model. I think we started with 3 versions of Copilot before we started rolling it out, so we could say, how is this going to be used, and is it beneficial first of all, and is it, what are the challenges to securing it, making sure that we are still a compliant organization when it comes to HIPAA and PHI.
I know too, the industry is definitely seeing a little bit of a tech infrastructure bottleneck, because of COVID. Now being post-COVID, there's still a lot of systems that are outdated. I mean, copper lines, 1990s tech in some of these facilities. What are you seeing in terms of that? Are we overcoming that bottleneck? Are we still in the middle of it?
I think progress is slow. And you hear in the tech arena, like everyone in South Korea has fiber to their house. Well, South Korea is a lot smaller than the US, and our elbow room makes it difficult to get that high speed stuff going. And then we have questions of who's going to control it and who's going to update it. And same with a building, right? Do you really want to invest in this building, or are we going to build a new building someplace? So there is a lot of dated infrastructure out there. Buildings that are 30 years old that were state of the art in the 90s, are dated now, and we can't update them anymore because they just didn't have the base fundamentals to add Wi-Fi access points every 200 feet, or run fiber optic from floor 1 to floor 2. Those take very specialized skills and very specialized knowledge, and even those are getting harder to find. If you got a guy who can run fiber, you're doing good, right? And I think we're improving, but at the same time, there's just so much to do that it's going to be a slow roll.
Tech isn't really a nice to have anymore now. It's a capital investment that people have to make to stay competitive. I mean, aside from just the competition factor that the guy down the street has it So we need it. What are the other advantages or the reasons why that it's no longer just a nice to have?
Well, I think it's a force multiplier. We see this going on in a lot of the more developed countries that they're having population declines, and workforce is not necessarily sitting in a chair for 30 years trying to do the same job or the gold watch and then retire. People are moving from job to job. So being able to capture that and replicate that and not lose your institutional knowledge when your frontline workers leave is pretty important. And in the old days, they used to use pen and paper, and you'd have to read through all these file cabinets worth of notes if you ever wanted to learn what the last guy did. Now you can put that in Copilot and say, hey, summarize this, give me the 10 most important things I need to know today. And so I think that transfer and improvement of knowledge sharing is just crucial to operating these days. Add data. Oh man, the size of data is just impossibly complicated to try and keep your head around without some sort of technological tool to help you. And I think we'll see that continue to grow. Size of our data pool that we're using a analytic tool called Domo for analytics that we're trying to roll out now. And just getting that in is quite the effort. And then we think, okay, do we want a year's worth of data, or do we want the last 30 years worth of data that we've been operating? And where do we draw that line if this is useful and this is not useful? And the technology can handle that, right? We could look at our analytics over the last 30 years. I don't know how useful the results would be though. And I'll rely on the analytic guys to tell us that. But yeah, technology is everywhere. We carry more technology in our pocket than we use to get to the moon, is the famous quote going
That's
around.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. It's getting smaller and lighter and faster.
I think it's interesting too what you're saying about the workforce too, because it's like we either, we have to do more with less or we have to maintain what we have with less, if maintaining is the way to go. I don't know if we necessarily need to do more than we're doing, but we're in an upside down funnel. So we're going to continue to see generation after generation, less and less people in the workforce and more older adults coming into this space. So I'm really curious how we're going to manage that, especially with some of the tech infrastructure we have. And then even if we improve that, tech isn't the only solution. We still have to have humans manning the ship.
Well, if you look at the statistics, my parents' generation are the largest consumers of technology right now. I'm in the Gen X range, but we have less technology than the people who are going into our senior living communities right now and want less technology than the people who are there. The connectivity and the information at your fingertips is just vitally important to us at this point.
I know IT too. I mean, you guys serve everyone, staff, residents, the systems in the community. I mean, it's like the invisible labor of tech support, right? I mean, how do you manage that from like the staff devices to Roombas to smart TVs? I mean, I can't even wrap my head around it.
Well, it goes back to the automation, and the more we can automate, and AI is playing a big role in that, right? So if I can handle, password resets and new user requests and new room requests with an AI bot that doesn't need me to sit at a keyboard and type the same information twice, the better. And then connecting the system. So if you're already putting your information into our customer relationship management tool, we already have that captured. Why would I ask you to fill out 3 more forms that ask you for your name, date of birth, and social security number 6 more times? Let's connect those tools on the back end, automate that, remove the cumbersome work so that when you're talking to the resident intake manager, you know that they have your information, they know who you are, and they get to connect with you rather than have you sit there and fill out a stack of forms again. So I think vital that people stay involved with people, but we also need to catch the data on the back end, right? And make sure that we have those tools aligned with everything else so that we're able to serve as best as we can without having to say, hold on a sec, let me go look that up, right?
Tech too. You've got the operational side of tech, and then you've got the resident facing support side of tech. I mean, how does an organization like yours kind of weigh and navigate that challenge of, are we going to do something that's benefiting the staff who supports the residents or the residents themselves?
Yes, I mean everything we do to benefit the workforce will hopefully add value to the residents as well, right? So that's the approach. And vice versa. Rather than having to go down to the concierge desk and have them find something for you on a map and arrange a ride for you, can we just have an app on your television that lets you do that? Say, hey, I want to go to the doctor's office today. I need a ride at 10 a.m. that's pretty simple technology that we could implement in a senior care facility. And we rely a lot on our vendors for that support. I manage 6 people in my entire organization, had like 80 communities. It's always based on how can the vendor support us in this effort. And we rely on them pretty heavily for that. Combination of technology integration between this is for the resident, this is for the staff. It's more like this is for the operations overall, and hopefully everyone's a little happier at the end of the day.
I've heard a lot of conversations too around robots, and there's questioning, are these really useful? Are they not useful? What is your position on them? I know a lot of communities are using them to kind of fill the FTE gaps.
Yeah.
But I know obviously they still require human guidance.
I'm looking forward to buying my Optimus 3 when it comes out from Tesla later this year, right? We'll see how that turns out.
Right.
Yeah, we from vacuuming a floor, right? We could pay one FTE to vacuum our floors once a day, or we can pay the equivalent to have a robot vacuuming all the floors in every level all day long, continuously for the same money or less. Then having that person, we can't take the person out as we just talked about. We have to then maintain the robots, right? You have to empty the bags, clean the brushes. I've got a little robot here in my house that, yeah, I used to spend 3 hours a day cleaning floors. Now I spend an hour a week fixing the robot to make sure it keeps working, right? And there is that human technology interaction that must happen in order to maintain what's there. And just making sure, a robot gets stuck every once in a while. Those server robots, they do a wonderful job, but they sometimes find an obstacle. They can't figure out how to get around, and someone's not there to direct them. They're just going to sit there and wait. So, and your food's getting cold. So,
as an IT leader too, I mean, what do you think we can do to help fill generational talent gaps and kind of upskill? I feel like there's a big gap.
there is a big gap, and we see this a lot. My team, like I said, I got six guys, 6 or 7 guys. They start at 2 to 3 years experience, and then there's this giant gap to those of us who have been around for 30 years. So I got three of the team that have been here for 30 years, and the rest of them have been here for less than 5. And that's their entire IT experience. So that 5 to 30 years is a big part of the where are those people, and can we get one of them? And it's pretty competitive for that level of skill and talent out there. So we've approached it by having those guys like myself and my engineers that have been here doing this for so long, mentoring one-on-one with the teams that are just coming up through the ranks and getting them to think, okay, that's how you fix a printer, but how do you think about the entire printing system as a whole? And how would you design this? And how would you improve this? And trying to get them out of that, oh, I'm just resetting passwords today and helping users log in, to how would I design this to be better? And how do I think about the system as a whole? And that is a journey. Certainly not going to happen overnight, and we realize that. But hopefully by the time, we're ready to hang up our hats and move into my residence, one of my communities, that I have a staff that's educated and knowledgeable enough to take over for me. And I think that's where a lot of the technology is. Yeah, leadership is in the technology arena, is educating the younger generations, and not age wise, I don't care about the age, but the skill gap is filled, right?
Is the systems thinking something that you feel like is just not happening now with the younger entry level team members, and you're just kind of having to educate them, or does that just come with age and experience?
It's kind of an epiphany you have after about 10 years of IT. It's like, oh, hey, this is the same problem I'm having over and over again. Maybe it's not this is the problem. Maybe it's something bigger outside of that. And I think when we try and educate people about, think about the system, not the issue, we are trying to accelerate that knowledge. It took me 10 years of banging my head against the wall and fixing computers to learn, hey, this is a system, not just a printer. If I can get my staff to do that in 6 years, that's a big step ahead for them in their career and their abilities. So that's what we're trying to do. I'll let you know in 10 years how that works out for me.
What do you think is the issue? Why is there such a gap in the mid-employment market? I mean, for IT specifically, I mean, where are all these people working right now that there's such a gap?
Well, I think there's a huge demand for it, and we've seen a little bit of pressure relief when like Facebook and Apple and Google start right sizing, when they start letting go their technical staff, those become available in the market. But most of the guys who have that level of experience get a really good paycheck and a really good job at these really big tech companies. And there's always another big tech company starting up someplace, right? So I think it's just really competitive for that skill set and that education level and experience level there. So I don't think there's a lack of people. I think it's just there's a bountiful plenty of technology jobs out there that just need that education and experience. And if you can't pay the six-figure salary for a guy who's been doing this for 8 years, you're probably not going to get that guy.
Yeah. Yeah, there's plenty of job opportunities right now for sure in tech. Talking about cybersecurity too, we're cybersecurity in a quantum age now. Can you educate our audience about what quantum computing is and how that's going to impact the future of encryption?
I can a little bit. So I'm not the expert, but I do read a lot. So right now we're a one and zero kind of computing mentality, right? It's either yes or no. And so that's the binary system that we've built up for the last 70, 80 years, right? And quantum computing is more of a state. You're either almost positive or almost negative. So you can be in multiple states at once. It adds a really interesting dimension to the way we compute. And Microsoft and Google have both released a chip this year that can do stateful computing like quantum, as close to quantum as I've seen from outside the big IBM quantum computers out there. And as they get smaller in technology and we add generative AI to that, it's going to be pretty fast and pretty furious how fast that generative AI can learn and adapt. And it's exciting, but it's also like, oh, what does this mean for security? Because in the past, you used to have to worry about the Nigerian prince wanting to send you $1 million. Next week, you're going to get a phone call from your mother saying, hey, I need 20 bucks so I can get home. And can I just get that out of your Apple Pay, right? And it's going to sound like your mom, and she's going to know a lot about you because AI just discovered everything there was in less than 2 minutes based on the internet. And it's going to be really hard to detect. You see that right now that even in encryption, the speed at which quantum can break a 256 AES encryption is really fast. We have to rethink how encryption is working to secure our data in transit. And there are now quantum resistant encryption algorithms that are being developed and worked on so that we can combat that next level of computer crime going on there. And the computer crime's not going to stop, right? It's a $3 billion a year industry. If there's money there, people are going to flock to it.
I mean, it's at this point in time, who has access to quantum computing? I mean, should we be worried about our standard security protocols right now, or is this like a future concern?
I would say probably going to start being a future concern in the next 5 years. That's how fast tech moves, right? 5 years ago, we didn't have AI, and now it's everywhere. So when quantum actually gets to the market and people learn how to use it, there's still that learning gap between, I know how to program in Python and C# and whatnot. How do you program in quantum, right? What does that look like? So there is that learning gap that I think will give us a little bit of relief before that's figured out. But we have AI now to help us with our coding, so that's going to go even faster now too. So I think we've got 4, maybe 5 years. We'll see how that turns out, though.
The last time we talked to you, you were talking about going back to the days of the mafia, why like some
Yeah.
sensitive data might be going back to paper and pen.
Right? Yeah. If your only concern is physical security, that
Yeah.
takes a lot of the burden off from that digital, right? And yeah, old tech was the way, right? I'd rather someone put a post-it note with their password underneath their desk than use a Microsoft Word document. That's one of my fear stories of the past is I had a user that kept all his banking data and all his passwords on a Word document, and if someone accessed his computer and downloaded all his files, and I was like, oh, if only you just used the post-it note. So that's where I learned that part.
I do think it's interesting though, because I feel like there's a lot of areas where we're going to value those analog approaches to things, things that are handwritten and human made are going to hold more value than something that's generated, through AI or digitally. Just pretty interesting.
Yeah, there's a big the non-fungible tokens. The art that they use on those is generating some interesting like financial revenue for people. And I'm like, you're really paying for ones and zeros here. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty, but is it worth that much money as opposed to like going and getting a Picasso or a Monet or one of the old artists that brush the canvas, right? Something you can see and smell and experience.
Yeah. How do you see yourself in terms of tech adoption, in terms of the curve? Where do you see yourself, and why? I mean, I think like waiting a little bit isn't always losing. You're not always behind. I think it's probably smart, especially given the role you play, to be a little bit behind the curve.
Yeah, there's marketing that actually cut the curve of adoption up, and there's early adopters, late adopters, and then all those guys in the middle. I definitely don't aspire to be an early adopter. I don't want to be first to market on adopting tech. Sometimes it happens because there's just this is what I want to use, right? So we mostly base tech utilization from our user base. They say, hey, I need a tool to help me do X. And we say, well, okay, let's go look and see what tools there are. It's like, well, if we want to future-proof this a little bit, we could be an early adopter on this new technology. We'll consider it and we'll definitely look at it and see if that's worth doing. But most of the time, being into that mid to late stage adoption gives you the ability to look back and say, hey, what happened over there when they tried this, right? So you get to see how it's working in the market before you try and throw it on your people. And you learn a lot of lessons that way. But again, to your point, we lose a little bit of that strategic advantage and that initiative of being first to market on something. And if that's a concern, maybe early adoption is the motto, right? And I'm not opposed to early adopters. I just don't want to be one of them.
Agreed. Agreed. 100,000%. I won't be first in line. I might be fifth in line, but
Yeah.
I want to see how the first four go first before I dive in. Another phrase I was curious about too is when it comes to tech implementation was a people first mentality. When it comes to like robotics and automation and AI, what does that mean and how is that utilized?
There's a phrase out there, and I used this in the talk at the Senior Living Executive Conference when I gave my presentation. It's called human in the loop. And a part of that is designing your process, even if it's an AI process, around the people who are using it and experiencing it, and not removing the person, but giving them leverage, right? So they can do their job better or faster or more of it, often the case. And but not thinking that, hey, this has to be completely automated, this has to be completely robotic. I don't need people in this. Well, we've known that robots require people. We know that AI requires someone to sit to verify, are you hallucinating now, or is that really something you can publish? So the person in the loop, the human in the loop, is always going to be essential whenever we're relying on technology, whether that's just quality assurance and quality checking to say, hey, is what you're putting out what we actually want to be saying? And then we got to remember that if everyone is using AI tools, it's going to filter down to like the two or three top runners. And so you're going to be putting out the same product that I'm putting out, that someone else is putting out. And then there's really no competitive advantage in there because you've lost that human touch and that personal connection that you could otherwise get keeping the people and augmenting them with the tech. I think it's pretty important to make sure you're thinking about the person before you think about the.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. At the end of the day, for sure, especially in this industry. Is there anything that you're doing proactively to plan for future moves in terms of tech and IT?
Lots of reading,
Yeah.
keeping up on the industry as much as possible, um, and seeing what other people are doing. Right. So we were talking about supporting residents before. They don't call my help desk, but at larger communities, 800 plus, which are probably 3 or 4 times larger than most of our communities, they're providing an on-site like free geek service where they'll show up one day a month and anyone can come and ask them tech questions and get help with their technology. That's a great service that involves a technician, technology, and resident education, where you can bring up stuff like, hey, there's this new social engineering out there where your grandson might call you saying he's in jail and he needs bail money. Being able to educate your residents is awesome. So those are kind of what we're looking at and what we're moving towards. I'm also really interested in smart technology, creating that smart apartment of the future. I think that's got a lot of potential for the senior living environment, and I really want to keep my eyes and my ears open for any of that new and interesting capabilities out there. Like I said, Optimus robot be in the corner right here next to me, typing away.
Do you see this smart apartment enhancing resident engagement too, or do you think that's a totally separate item?
There's an interesting work on that where, and it goes back to our AI conversation. We're getting residents engaged with AI chatbots, and it's improving their quality of life because they have someone to talk to. But what it's doing is it's removing that engagement with their neighbors. So I see smart apartments as helpful. If the lights come on and when you get up in the middle of the night to go use the restroom, that can help you prevent a fall, right? If you're monitoring temperature and adjusting it automatically rather than going and changing the thermostat, that improves comfort. So we definitely look at those things. We're looking at wearables all the time. Would a smartwatch give us better data information for your care planning? And other technologies like that are just beneficial for anyone who wants to use it. So we definitely keep an eye on those, and I think smart apartments would be great, but we always have to think about what's the infrastructure look like, can it support that? And that's always the first challenge is examining the infrastructure and thinking, how would we apply smart locks and smart cameras and all of that other stuff?
My last question for you too. I think there's a lot of people who assume or are fearful that innovation just means that, job security is at risk, less people needed, right? Because technology is taking care of more of the heavy lifting for them. I think there's probably a way that innovation and employee retention can coexist, especially in the healthcare space. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Is there a way that technology and innovation can actually improve employee retention?
I think so. I think that jobs will change, right? We don't have people driving nails with hammers anymore. There's just no point to that. But we still need people that can design a structure and understand how it all fits together and making sure that everything flows the way it needs to so that we have good productivity at the end of the day. And no matter which technology you add or which job you're working with, they'll be using technology to improve that. The analogy I really like is, think about in the early 80s before pneumatic hammers were there, how many people were sitting there framing and how many framers do we have out there today? Those pneumatic guns gave 1,000 to 1 work effort. So those jobs, yes, they went away from the technology arena or from the construction arena, but other jobs opened up in the technology arena, right? We now need people who can assemble pneumatic guns, who can repair pneumatic guns, who can fix compressors, who can do all these other jobs that are needed for that new industry. And I think technology is the same way. And there is a barrier to entry. I think that is our biggest challenge is that if you don't understand tech and you're not interested in understanding tech, you're going to have a much harder time in the future. I think everyone's going to be at the point where they need to understand at least the most basic tech information in order to operate in any job that they're doing. Yeah, we see that McDonald's has robotic French fry cooks now, right? Do you know how to operate a robotic French fry cook?
Yeah. I've seen a few that they don't even have registers anymore. They just have the
Yeah.
kiosks,
Yeah.
so yep.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy. Well, thank you, Benjamin. Thank you so much for such a great conversation. Where can our audience go to learn more about Sinceri Senior Living or connect with you?
Yeah, they can always go to our webpage, sinceriseniorliving.com, that has all the resident information on there and a little bit more about the leadership team and the Sinceri corporate environment. And we always like to say, Sinceri means like family. So that's kind of our approach, even in tech. If I'm helping you reset your password, I'm helping like you're my dad or my brother, not some stranger out there. So that's best place to find it. You can find me on LinkedIn. Not a big talker, but I usually respond.
Yeah, awesome. All right. Well, as we wrap up today's episode, I want to extend a huge thank you to you, Benjamin Exstrom, for joining us and offering a clear-eyed strategic view of technology's role in senior living, from managing AI governance and cybersecurity threats to leading digital transformation across dozens of communities. Benjamin's work shows us that true innovation requires intention, not just excitement. So if you want to connect with Benjamin or learn more about his work at Sinceri Senior Living, we've included his LinkedIn profile as well as the website link in the show notes. As always, we hope you found this episode insightful and inspiring. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform and stay tuned for more episodes where we continue to explore the evolving world of senior care, covering everything from innovative care models and leadership strategies to family support, technology, and the future of aging. And remember that From Leads to Leases isn't just an audio experience, we're also a video podcast. So if you want to see the video versions of our episodes, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube or Spotify channels. I'm Jerry Vinci, CEO of CCR Growth. Thank you for joining us on From Leads to Leases, and please like, subscribe, and share this episode with anyone who might find it useful. I'm truly grateful for your time and attention. And until next time, lead with strategy and with heart. Chat with you again soon. Thanks, Benjamin.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to From Leads to Leases. Are you ready to fill your rooms faster and increase occupancy? Visit ccrgrowth.com to learn about our Senior Growth Innovation Suite, a proven system to generate highly qualified, tour-ready leads, accelerate sales, and reduce acquisition costs. Let's connect and turn your challenges into opportunities. See you next time.